Hey everyone, I'm back. And this is a little bit embarrassing, but I ended the last video a little bit too soon. I had just, we had just created this spot right here, checking if we're doing the conditional model, and if we are, augmenting the amount of data that we're passing into the model. And what I did was I ran this command at the end of the last video, and this command worked, and so I thought I was done. I thought I actually had tested my code, but it turns out that I hadn't tested my code. The reason is because when I ran this command, I did not pass the conditional model flag into my code. And so if I do that, pass conditional model like this, then here's what happens. Crap happens. Python barfs at us some error message. Input size -1 must be equal to input size expected 59 got 77. Okay, so these numbers are jumping out to me right now as this is the length of our vocabulary. I've seen that number before a lot. And then 77, I think, is the length of our vocabulary plus all categories. So somewhere we have, I think, a tensor that is being, that we're trying to do like some sort of tensor contraction where on these two axes, but they're different sizes. And the reason they're different sizes is because we're now passing in an input tensor here whose size is this 77 instead of 59. So let's scroll up and see what line this actually happens on. Line 128. Line 128 up here. And this is in the middle of our RNN model. And so this makes sense to me now. We have length vocabulary right here, and what this is doing is, well, rather, this used to be guaranteed the input size to our RNN was just the length of the vocabulary, that 59 value. But now when we pass in the conditional model, the input to our RNN is bigger than the length of the vocabulary. And so what I'm going to do, let's come up here and say if let's create a variable called input size, set it equal to length of vocabulary. But if args.conditional model, then input size should additionally have the all categories, all categ or is like that. And then down here, this should be input size. Input size. Like that. Let's see if that fixes our problem. And that does fix the problem. So this is a really common, super easy mistake to make where you think you're testing code, but you're actually not testing it because you actually forgot to pass in the parameters that you needed to test that code. I personally make this mistake all the time, and so do, this is the sort of mistake that like a good developer makes this mistake a lot. And so what a good developer does is they try to prevent the opportunity for mistakes like this from happening. And so normally when I'm doing my PyTorch development, my deep learning work, I'll be using a lot of additional software engineering tools like Git and some sort of continuous integration testing service like Travis CI. Those are the two that I use all the time. I haven't been using those, haven't mentioned them at all in this course yet though, because if you haven't done a lot of software engineering before, they can be relatively confusing, and deep learning is confusing enough as it is, so I didn't want to introduce that new material as well. But that's what happens when you rely on humans typing in our test cases manually. Humans make mistake. We are stupid. And so when possible, use these better automated tools if you know how to set up your test cases. And this won't happen. Okay, so now I'm going to actually run this for an extended period of time, let the model converge, and then we'll, in the next video, do the actual generation of some cool names. See ya.